Hi everyone, welcome to the latest edition of Purdue Engineering Live. Tonight we are going to be talking about academics and majors, basically the academic side of student life here at Purdue. I'm joined by 3 current students here on camera with me. I also have 2 students behind the scenes, as always, to help answer your questions and send the questions over to us as well. So I'll have my students behind the scenes can introduce themselves through the chat, but I'll also have my current students here introduce themselves. Shivali?
Yeah, so my name is Shivali Rao. I am a senior in industrial engineering, getting a minor in management, and I am from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hi guys, my name's Paul Dolly. I'm a junior in civil engineering and I'm from Crown Point, Indiana.
How's it going, guys? I'm Teddy Sergisketter. I'm a junior in mechanical engineering and I'm from Bettendorf, Iowa.
And I'm Ari Swartz, the Assistant Director for the Office of Future Engineers. If you've tuned into any of our broadcasts, you know who I am already, so we'll skip through that. So I want to kind of start off with the very basics, talking about academics and minors. As you likely know, or hopefully know by now, everyone starts out in engineering at Purdue in first year engineering. So we have a lot of students that will come in not really sure what major they want to go into, and first year helps them figure out the right fit. We'll have other students that are pretty set on what they want to go into. They'll come into first year engineering and then they'll end up changing their mind and go into something else. And of course we'll also have those come in knowing what they want to do. They end up going into that major their sophomore year. So I want to hear from you guys on which one of those 3 categories were you in? Did you know what you wanted to do? Did you change your mind? And how did first year engineering maybe play into that? So Shivali, want to start with you?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So I came into school thinking I would do biomedical engineering. I had done that because I had cousins who had done the same thing. It sounded really cool and I was very interested in the healthcare industry. But when I came to Purdue, I realized that my interests aligned more with industrial engineering, but I didn't know that industrial engineering was a thing until I came into engineering 131 or 132. So when I was in the program about 4 years ago, they used to have ambassadors come into class and actually talk about what industrial engineers do, or what every major does in example projects and possible career paths. And I saw that plus a minor in management was actually exactly what I wanted to be doing, and I could apply that in the healthcare field. So I decided to change what I wanted to do halfway through my freshman year, but due to the fact that I was in FYE, I didn't have to be behind it, any of my plan of study, and I took all the right classes to get myself into industrial engineering.
Yeah, so I was kind of in that same category. I actually came in wanting to do chemical engineering. I wanted to work in biofuels, but I've always had an interest in sustainability and environmental problems and issues, and then also kind of on the political side too. So going through the first year engineering program, I was exposed to all the different majors that Purdue had to offer, and it's actually kind of interesting. So we, as a first year engineer, you attend different seminars put on by the disciplinary colleges. So they have like advisors, professors, students in those majors that kind of give a more in-depth presentation about what that major looks like at Purdue, especially as you're going through your later years of college. And so actually after I didn't attend the civil engineering one, which is the major I actually ended up in, but those really helped me explore what some of the other options were past chemical engineering, kind of what sustainability and environmentalism looks like in those other majors. So I actually went to the environmental and ecological engineering one, which is kind of tangent to civil engineering. I was actually kind of came off of the civil engineering in some capacity. So I went to that. That started sparking my interest, making me think, is chemical engineering right for me, or do I want to start exploring some other ones? So having talked to some of the mentors in the first year engineering program that we had, and then also just doing some research online on my own, I found that civil engineering is actually a better fit for me and kind of what I wanted to do. So definitely in that second boat too.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of like Shivali, I came in and I was really dead set on biomedical engineering. Like I wanted to design prosthetics. I had it all figured out, that was going to be a life. I was going to work in industry. And then I got into the program and I think I realized kind of through the sessions that they were talking about that wasn't as much what I wanted to do. I think I realized that the only thing that I was interested in biomedical engineering was like mechanical design. So I wasn't quite as interested in like the tissue side or the cellular side or even the electrical kind of bioelectronics component there. And so I thought that mechanical engineering would be a much better fit for me. And I had the opportunity to meet with some professors and kind of go over the plan of study with them. And I think I realized that all the classes that we were able to take in mechanical engineering kind of more suited my interests. And you have so much time to figure it out. Like having that 6 or 8 months to figure out what major it is you want to do is really valuable. Like Paul's one of my roommates. He switched. My other 2 roommates, one of them switched from electrical engineering to computer engineering, or switched their interest, I guess. Yeah. And the other one switched their interest from biomedical to nuclear engineering. So people really, don't know coming in, and that's okay.
I hear a lot, like Chevalier, like not a lot of people have heard of industrial engineering when I do presentations and I talk about industrial. Usually it's very clear that nobody's really heard of it before. And we actually have 17 different engineering degrees here at Purdue to choose from. And so it's really hard coming out of high school knowing all those different majors and you know, being more sure which one is the right fit for you. So it's one of the nice things. We find about every year about half the students go into a different major than what they initially thought they were going to do. And that's the whole point of first year. So we have some questions starting to roll in from our audience, which is awesome. One is, could you elaborate on the first year engineering requirements? So what all is involved with first year engineering? Obviously there's 2 first year classes. What else are you taking and how does all that play together?
So in addition to those 2 first year classes, those are engineering 131 and 132. Those are kind of classes that give you, you know, a good basis in engineering, kind of give you some good engineering fundamentals. They're teaming classes, so you spend the whole semester working in teams, building up engineering fundamentals and things that you can kind of apply later in your classes. In addition to that, though, you also have some more general requirements. So everyone's going to take calculus, physics, chemistry. There's a communications course, which I really enjoyed. English. Yeah. So there's kind of like a wide breadth of classes that you have to take. You can, you know, some of them you can bring in transfer credit. So if you have like Calc 1, Calc 2 credit, you can transfer that in and not have to take those classes. But you get a pretty like wide breadth freshman year before kind of narrowing in once you finally get in your major.
There's also the science selectives, so that's kind of the distinguishing factor your second semester in FYE from one major to another. For example, for biomedical engineering and industrial engineering, there's a different science selective, Chem 116, so the second semester Chem, or a computer science class. So that's one of the ones that you actually get to choose depending on what major you're going into, and those gives you some more specific skills that apply more towards your major. But everything else you will be using in just about every single engineering major, which is kind of why we have the program set up the way it is.
So kind of bouncing off that, what were the class sizes of all your classes that you had your freshman year, and kind of where are they now? Have they gotten smaller? Let's start on that.
Sure. So I would say that your biggest classes are generally going to be in your first year, moving into second year a little bit. So like Teddy and Chevalier have been talking about, all of the Purdue engineering students are taking that core first year engineering classes. So that means, you know, pretty much everyone's going to be taking a calculus class. Those classes, I think the biggest one I had was around 400 students. So those are, you know, about as big of classes as you're going to see here at Purdue. But although they do have some of those bigger classes, I also had some that were, you know, closer to 200, some that were smaller than that. When you have those larger classes, that's just for your lectures. You're going to have that lecture 3 times a week with your professor. That's your traditional lecture style where they're just talking, teaching the course material, and you're watching and taking notes. And then with all of those classes, you're going to have a recitation attached to that. So that's going to be either 1 or 2 days a week where you have a breakout that's closer to 30 students taught by a graduate student, a teaching assistant, and that's where you're kind of doing more practice problems, covering some of the tougher concepts that you learned in class that week. That's where you can really get more of that individual attention. We also offer something here called Boilercast. So most professors at this point are using that. That's essentially a recording that's posted online where it records the audio of what they're talking about, and then also a video of either what they're writing on the DocCam or like their PowerPoint if they're annotating that. So you can go back through and rewatch that, either if you missed lecture or you want to see it again and go through those concepts. So Purdue offers a lot of ways to make those bigger classes feel smaller. And then if one of you guys want to talk about kind of like moving, you know, further into your engineering career, what they look like.
Yeah, definitely. So moving up from, you know, your freshman year to your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you're going to be in smaller class sizes just because you're getting more segmented into your specific majors. So industrial engineering, for example, is one of the larger engineering majors, but my class sizes at the moment are on the 100 to 150 range. It kind of sounds still like a lot, but when you're actually in those class sizes, you understand that your professor actually does know and recognize a lot of faces. You're able to, it's not as much of a lecture style anymore where you're not able to ask maybe as many questions because there's material going on. If you have a question, you're able to raise your hand, ask the professor, and keep going through the material. The classes still will have office hours and maybe some supplementary instruction sessions. The recitations don't necessarily carry on, so I haven't had a recitation since I think my sophomore year, but those ones are really geared towards those bigger classes, so you get the smaller high school class feel when you are in those lectures, and you can't ask your professor every question you have in the middle of lecture.
Yeah, and so in mechanical engineering, just about all of the upper level classes have a lab attached to them. So your lecture might be like 100 students, kind of like Shiv was talking about, but you'll have a lab that's maybe 20 students. So it's you and a partner, and then there's like one teaching assistant, and then like an undergraduate teaching assistant as well. So those are pretty small. They're not super big, and I think that kind of helps you learn the material a little better.
Supplements that, yeah, for sure. And just to talk a little bit about some of the other resources that we have in those classes. So Shivali had mentioned that in those classes, as you move kind of into those upper level courses, you're not necessarily going to have a recitation attached to it. And some of the courses, like Teddy said, do have a lab component to it, so you can get that individual attention. There's a teaching assistant that's teaching those to you that you can get help from. But we also have a lot of resources for some of those classes that don't have either of those things attached to it to get that individual attention. So we do have help rooms for a lot of the common courses, both in the first year engineering courses, but even more so when you get into your disciplinary college. So for example, just like me in civil engineering, we have a help room for like statics, dynamics, hydraulics, so like the courses that all civil engineers have to take to complete their degree. And essentially what a help room is it's just open office hours that's hosted by either a teaching assistant or a graduate student that has familiarized themselves with the course, has taken the course in the past and done well, and they're just there to help answer your questions either about the lecture material or homework questions or something like that too. So that's just another way to go and get individual attention.
Nice. So, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of different ways. Being a large university, I mean, those large class sizes are really unavoidable, but we really do everything we can to make it feel as small as possible, make sure you have all these opportunities to get any help you have or any help you need in these classes, just no matter how big or small they are. But they do typically get smaller as you get deeper in. So let's see, we also have some questions about bringing in credit. So can you bring in credit from high school to satisfy some of these first year classes? Absolutely. Admissions website has a whole page on transferring credit to Purdue, and I'll even walk you through exactly what classes you get credit for based on AP test, International Baccalaureate, dual enrollment through community college or local universities. So I'm getting real blinded by this one over here. We're all probably like looking very angelic tonight. So there's lots of ways to bring in credit. So then you would just replace classes. Did any of you guys bring in credit from probably all three of you? So what was you guys' experience with credit? Did you accept all the credit you received? Did you retake any courses? What did you guys do with all of that?
I can talk about that. So I did half and half. So I accepted a couple of the credits and I didn't accept a couple of the credits. The ones I did take were my English credits. So I didn't take English 106 when I was in FYE. And I took a couple of my history credits and Spanish credits, so from my AP exams and stuff like that, so I got rid of some of my general elective requirements at Purdue. The one that I didn't take was my calculus credit, so I took Calc AB in high school, but I decided not to get rid of that one and retake it here at Purdue just because I felt really comfortable with the material that Calc 1 was taught and how it was taught when I was in high school. I felt like I had a really good grasp on it, but I knew that everything in college was going to be different. It's a bigger class size, it's a different teaching style, different way that they're doing homework, so I wanted to see how what I already knew transfer to college and make that ease a little bit better and smooth for myself. I know some people who didn't do that and they just jumped straight into Calc 2 or Calc 3, and that's definitely fine, but for me especially, I really liked retaking Calc 1. It doesn't put you behind at all if you don't take your credits, because I believe that the whole 4-year degree is set up so you don't have to come in with anything to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah, it is. I'm in this very similar boat as Shivali. I took a lot of my non-STEM credits, so English, I came in with communications credit, some of my general electives, took my Calc 1 credit, but I did retake Calc 2 even though I had the AP credit for it. And she's certainly right. A lot of classes are taught differently here at college than in high school, and honestly, even professor to professor, they're kind of taught differently. So it just kind of depends on the professor that you get. But I think it's a personal decision whether or not to bring in credit. Like Shivali was saying, the 4-year plan is set up so that you don't even need to bring in any credit to graduate in 4 years. But I think what I found as I have gone throughout my later years of college has definitely been like, now you're kind of catching up where you're getting the end of those math sequences, and then the other people that have taken more credit finish earlier, so they can either take another class, maybe for like a minor or something like that, or get ahead in their major. Or, if you have a heavier semester with some tougher classes, just take one fewer class that semester. So, that's the bigger advantage of it. I think you're definitely going to feel the effect of those credits that you're bringing in later in your college career than earlier. But that's a completely personal decision. If you feel like you want that, you want to make that use that transition a little bit, where you don't feel totally comfortable with the course material that you learned in high school, then go ahead and retake it. But if you don't, then you're not necessarily at a loss either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I took all the credit that I had. Most of that was in kind of non-STEM classes. So when I got to Purdue, I haven't actually had to take a gen ed since I've been here, because I had a lot of credit for that, which is really nice because kind of like they mentioned, it's freed you up to take some more fun classes, take classes you're interested in, or just have a lighter semester if you want. The only STEM credit I had was Calc 1, which I decided to take. And I definitely don't regret taking it. I think there's kind of two schools of thought. Like you can retake it here or take your credit. And I don't know, it was good for me, I think, because it freed me up to take some more classes that I enjoy later on. But like, if you're not entirely comfortable in the material, or if you just want to see how it works in college, you can definitely choose to retake the class.
See, I was one I regretted retaking Calc 1 because it was hard. Like it was a lot harder in high school, and I already knew it. So I had to study on all this stuff I already knew to hopefully ace all the tests.
True, yeah.
And I felt like I should have started right on in Calc 2 because I knew the material. So if I were in because you mentioned you felt pretty comfortable with material, I kind of did too, but I was like, I'm gonna do that easy A. I'm just gonna retake it, and I actually kind of regret it. So it really is. There are lots of different schools of thought.
Yeah, lots of different schools of thought.
What we usually recommend is kind of universal, at least, is looking up the Purdue Math Exam Archive and whatever class you get credit for, taking the last final that's listed on there. Print it out, take like you would actually take a test, and then the answer keys there separately. See how you did. If you did really well, if you got a 90 or 100 on the test, again, with my school of thought, I would just take the credit then and start in the next level. But if you definitely got like a C or a D or lower, then definitely retake that course to get that foundation before you move to the next level. That's a really good way to kind of gauge, though, where you stand in regards to how it is here at Purdue, because those are all actual exams that students took over the years. They're also really helpful when you're actually in the classes, too, to be able to study for your upcoming exams throughout the semester, is looking at all the past year's exams. It's great study material. All right, so we've got some more questions now. About transition to major, we kind of talked about the first year engineering requirements, taking all these courses, doing well in them. And this is a question that we get a lot. Since everyone starts out in first year engineering, does everyone get their first choice in major starting their sophomore year? For last year, for students that started in their major this past fall, that's sophomores, 94% of students got their first choice. That 6% that didn't were basically the bottom 6% of the class. There's not any minimum GPAs really. It's totally dependent on space in the major that you want. We have 2 majors that every year will have more students select than there are spaces. That's aeronautical engineering and mechanical engineering. And then some years there's some more, like last year we also had biomedical engineering, had to turn away only 1 student. 101 chose them, they could only take 100 because of capacity. Interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary engineering turned away 1 student. Those were the only 4 last year that turned away students out of 12 academic schools here in engineering. Students that have a 3.2 GPA as well as a 3.2 in the first year engineering required courses are given priority. In fact, everyone last year who had a 3.2 or higher did get their first choice. So it's kind of an unofficial guarantee, but it's not an actual guarantee. There is a way, though, to be guaranteed your first choice. It's a 3.2 GPA and 3.2 and only looking at the required courses. And a few other conditions of starting in first year engineering right off the bat, not coming in from a different major, passing all your classes on the first try. And if you meet those conditions, you can be guaranteed your first choice. But all that said, only 6% of students didn't. There was students that wanted aeronautical engineering, mechanical engineering, biomedical, and interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. But even with those 4, students that had below 3.2 still got in. Like mechanical engineering still admitted 100 students that didn't have a 3.2. So again, it's those students that have very, very low GPAs. Because at the ground level, the way that it works is supposed to work is as long as you pass all the first year engineering classes, you have a GPA of a 2.0 or more, and there's room in the major you want, you're in. There's no application, there's no process to go through. It's just a matter of selecting your first choice and a backup choice just in case, and hitting submit, and that's it. So it's supposed to be a very stress-free process. As long as you do well in your classes, you're going to be fine. I mentioned everyone with a 3.2 or higher got their first choice last year. Our average GPA for first-year engineering students was a 3.23, 3.24, somewhere around in that area. But basically, the average student had above a 3.2. So I would say it's almost harder to not get your first choice because it's just not. It's really not an issue. And for those that don't get their first choice, you can choose a backup. You can go to something outside of engineering. You could decide to do that. Or what many students will do is you can stay in first-year engineering for 1 to 2 more semesters, retake courses, get your grades up, and then try again, and you'll be fine then, typically. So it's there's a lot of flexibility in the process. We really like to allay those concerns that it really shouldn't be a concern. As long as you get the help you need in your classes, if you ever start to struggle, you're gonna be totally fine. Did you guys know anybody, have any friends that didn't get their first choice? And if so, what did they do? You know anybody? And
yes, I have a friend that wanted to go into Aero, that's stayed in first year engineering an extra semester, but that's because her GPA was under a 3.
Sure.
So yeah.
Did she end up getting in?
I don't know. I haven't checked up with her this semester. So
fair.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that's true. I mean a lot of people that don't get in their first try, just stay in another semester, retake some of those classes maybe that they didn't get great grades in, or might have failed or something like that, and that boosts your GPA right back up, so you can be competitive. And the reason why obviously we have at least some sort of requirements is so that you do have that strong base in first year engineering, because if you go in not knowing those fundamentals, then you're going to struggle in your disciplinary major anyway. Yeah. So we just want to make sure that you're ready to go. You can take full advantage of your engineering major when you get into it.
It's usually just a wake-up call, basically, if you didn't get your first choice. It's usually a wake-up call. You just need to change your study habits. It's not necessarily that engineering is not for you. It's just that college is hard, something might come up, who knows. And so we really try to give you all the opportunities to study what you want to study. So I definitely understand why it's a concern for a lot of people, but we're trying everything we can to help ease those concerns, hopefully. We've got some questions about civil engineering.
Hey!
Wow.
Hey!
Nice.
All right.
So first of all, if students come in set on civil engineering to be the major and definitely want it, how easy is it to get it? I don't think they've turned away any students in the last several years.
I've never heard of anything.
We need more civil engineers.
Yes, please come into civil engineering.
Please don't change your mind.
Funny, I give tours and I talk to students all the time, and it is my lucky day when I get a civil engineering student coming in. So a lot of people come in.
It's not a sexy major.
It's not a sexy major,
but
it's an important one.
It is. It's foundational to everything we do. But
you want some roads, you better be a civil engineer.
Exactly. You want to be in a building and not have it collapse on you.
You don't want to be a civil engineer. You don't want your yard to flood.
Yeah. So it may not be a sexy major, but it's a really cool. You get to do some amazing stuff.
Doing some pretty cool stuff in civil engineering.
So that's the first half. The other question was: it seems like the civil engineering building seems a bit old compared to others. Does that have any bearing on the facilities and the classes that you take?
So a lot of my classes in civil engineering are not hosted in that building necessarily. So the Wilmeth Active Learning Center is kind of the main meeting space. A lot of classrooms in there. We've consolidated all of our library space in that building. It's kind of in the center of campus. I actually have more than 50% of my classes there this semester. In civil engineering, has really been leaning into that. But that being said, I do have some classes in the civil engineering building. And while it is one of the older engineering buildings on campus, they've actually been doing a lot of internal renovations to that, so you might not see it on the exterior of the building. But the entire basement, all of the lab spaces that we use, like for my materials classes, my geotechnical engineering course, those lab spaces are brand new. There's study spaces down there for the students that are brand new. They just finished construction last semester on them. So while certainly some of the classrooms are older, that doesn't even necessarily mean that they're not good classrooms. I mean, they still have all the things that you're gonna want to see. Maybe not all of the modern amenities, like touchscreen TVs and stuff like that you might see in some of the newer classrooms. But I mean, definitely still decent classrooms in there. But like I said, a lot of the spaces that are used for studying, lab space and stuff like that, have actually been renovated very recently.
They've still got more plans in the works too for civil. They're not done renovating it. They're going to be doing more. It's Hampton Hall is the name of the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got more plans in the works, more active classrooms, more I think they're putting a huge study lounge. The one that's already there, going to make it even. They're going to expand on it. Right. Purdue Engineering is very committed to even our older buildings, going through and revamping them. We did that with Grissom Hall, which is where industrial engineering is. Were you here before it was renovated?
I was not.
So that building, Grissom Hall, where industrial is it's over 100 years old, and I think it was 2014. They gutted it entirely, only left the outer shell, took out all the floors, walls, ceilings, all of it, and completely re-engineered it. And it's amazing now. It's
Yeah,
really nice.
It is really nice.
We've started doing that with our electrical engineering building. One of the annexes are going to move on to the main part. Our MSEE building is currently undergoing some renovations as well. So it's a mix. We're also got brand new facilities in the works to come online in the next few years. So there's if you Google Purdue Engineering Master Plan, they just recently put out earlier this year the plan for the next like 20, 30 years. So you can kind of see where we're headed. And there's all sorts of new state-of-the-art facilities, and civil engineering definitely not left out in those plans by any means. I think we also had a question about mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering, but at least we can cover mechanical. Do the high rankings of mechanical engineering, they also reference electrical engineering programs, reflect on the biomedical engineering program, asking because the BME ranking is not as high as the other majors. So before I get to mechanical rankings, this is a soapbox issue of mine. Rankings are great to look at. It's also important though to look at the methodology behind them. What are they looking at to put these rankings together? When it comes to the top undergraduate engineering programs in the country, which Purdue Engineering is number 8 in the country, which is awesome. The top aeronautical engineering programs in the country, I think we're number 2 or 3, I haven't looked lately. We're number 1 in agricultural and biological engineering. That's all well and great, it's wonderful, but when you look at the methodology behind that from US News and World Report, all they do is they send a survey out to the heads of aeronautical engineering departments across the country, to the heads of undergraduate engineering programs, to the deans, and they all rank each other on how good they think their peer universities are. So it's really just a reputation contest, which is great. We have a great reputation. So I'm definitely not bashing our rankings as like us being highly ranked, but that doesn't really show for what it's going to be like as a student at that program. So it's more the value of your degree that you'll hold if you graduate from our program with that reputation, but it doesn't really speak to your time as a student. So definitely look at rankings, look at what they're looking at. Another ranking that I really like is from the Wall Street Journal and Times Higher Education. I think it's in the 2nd or 3rd year. They actually look at student experience and student outcomes, student resources. So it actually talks to your time on campus. With that, Purdue's number 5 overall, just the overall university, not even just engineering. So look at different rankings. Don't get too caught up in the US News and World Report rankings. They're great to look at, but it's all about reputation for those. So Teddy, what would you say about your experience in mechanical engineering, the reputation it has, and I mean, did you look at rankings that kind of help you determine where to go? I
mean, it was definitely like a little bit of a factor in my decision, I guess. Like I think we're the number 8 or number 6 mechanical engineering in the program in the country, which is very, very good, obviously. But I think the reason it is so good, and ultimately I think the reason I was like really drawn to it, is how hands-on it is. Mechanical is like pretty notoriously, I guess, hands-on. Like almost every single class you take when you're a junior and you're a senior has a lab attached to it, kind of like I mentioned earlier. So you have like design labs, fluids labs, controls labs. Like you're doing a lot of stuff. And I really feel like that, if we're thinking about student outcomes, like when you move in industry, I feel like that leads to a really good outcome. When you're not just learning theory and stuff, you're like applying it. And there's a lot that goes on in the program. So we have 2 design build test car teams in the building. So they build a brand new car every year. That's Formula and Baja. There's a 3D printing lab in the building. There's a lot of like resources that we're able to take advantage of. And I think that's kind of, I think, why the experience is so good. But I've definitely really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did any of you guys, did you use rankings at all in your choice for college, or at least to get us on the list maybe? Not at all?
So Paul and I are both from Indiana.
That helps.
So I think, yeah, it kind of helps because Purdue's always just been in the back of my mind of like, it's a really great engineering school, and I don't think I needed to necessarily look up a ranking. It's just been kind of like the reputation like you were talking about before is, everybody just has it in such a high regard, but I didn't really look at it and I didn't look at it when I chose my major specifically for industrial engineering. I only found out my ranking after being a part of the program, and I was like, oh, we are a really good industrial engineering school, and that was a nice bonus, but I kind of picked it more just because it aligned with my interests more than anything.
Yeah, and speaking to biomedical, since the student raised that point, I was speaking with some of the people over in biomedical department, and they would go from being the number whatever to 1 year they weren't even in the ranking at all. They didn't make it to the top 15. And they had no changes whatsoever in their faculty and their labs between those 2 years. And it was just a matter of, I guess, their name, other universities kind of forgot we had biomedical or engineering or something. And so that kind of shows how volatile those rankings are. They, year to year, they could change a lot. It's just based on how often that name is kind of put out there in the different journals and how often other universities are seeing our name, our university pop up.
Biomedical engineering has some very cool facilities.
They do.
And some of the, I mean, I have some friends in biomedical engineering here, and some of the research that their professors are doing is just like so cool. Like, just cutting edge, you know.
And they have new facilities on the way. They're adding a brand new annex on their building. It's like less than 10 years old. Or maybe
it's a really cool building.
Yeah,
and they're already adding on to it to expand their capacity and have even more cutting edge labs.
Yep.
I just saw, I hesitate to mention it because I'm going to butcher the name. Kind of related to biomedical engineering research, Purdue's getting ready to install a brand new electron microscope. I don't know if you guys saw this news. It's like a cutting edge technology. The people that invented it got, I don't think it was the Nobel, it might have been the Nobel Prize for chemistry. It's like a $9 million special type of electron microscope, and it's right next to the biomedical engineering building. And there was like 6 different organizations all had to pitch in to be able to afford this thing. So yeah, we have some phenomenal facilities, we have some phenomenal equipment. Sure, rankings are great. We're really proud to be well ranked every year. We've been, undergraduate engineering has been in the top 10 for a very long time. And we're really proud of that. That's great. I'm not trying to downplay that part, but I'm just saying don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't only look at rankings when you're looking at things. Talk to students, learn more about the actual student life side of things as well. Did any of you guys do honors college, honors engineering? So we actually, one of the questions was, is the time commitment or workload unreasonable to combine honors college with engineering?
No. I mean, we're both still here.
We're still doing it.
I definitely think it was worth it. I liked honors a lot. It's a little different of a first year engineering class. It's like a little more project based. You have like 3 main projects throughout the year versus like kind of assignments throughout. But it was really good, and I think it was good for both of us.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it doesn't add a ton. So the honors engineering class is kind of interesting. So the traditional first year engineering class, 131 to 132, that's going to be going on twice a week that you're going to have class. I think it's 2 credit hours, is that right?
It's 2, yeah.
And then the honors first year engineering course, when we took it, it was 3.5. It might be 4 now.
I think it is 4 now.
It's 4.
But essentially we combined the first year engineering material. So like Teddy mentioned earlier, teaming, project management, engineering design process. We kind of combined that with something else. So when we took it, it was 141 and 142 still. They have since updated it. And when we took it, it was it combined kind of some computer science into that. So we had a little heavier focus on coding. We coded in C and Python and MATLAB, which the traditional first year engineering class didn't touch.
They do C.
Python.
They do C in MATLAB.
They do C.
They do C in 159.
And now 161 and 162 is what the honors first year engineering program is called. And they now combine physics mechanics into that. So that's physics 172 if you guys have seen the course names that all first year engineers are required to take. So if you take the honors version, then you're not required to take that physics 172 course. So they factor in that material into it too. So it's a bigger time commitment for sure than the non-honors version. But I think that you also, you get more credit out of it. You can have that count for some other courses, and then like Teddy said, you're doing, it's a little more project heavy, so you're working a little bit more on those projects outside of class. But really rewarding. It was a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I would say though, like it's more for personal development than professional development. Like I honestly don't really think that a company will care if you're in honors, if that's your end goal. Like I think for Paul and I, it was definitely a good thing to do because first off, the first year engineering class was a little more project based. We also got to take some cool classes kind of outside of engineering, which is nice, from time to time to not just be taking like math and science all the time. But don't be worried if you didn't get into honors or if honors is maybe something you're not wanting to do. Like it's not necessary to have a good time here at Purdue, but if you're, kind of deciding between doing it and not doing it, I would definitely tell you to go for it.
Yeah. Are you guys planning on graduating with honors?
Yeah.
Nice. So what are the requirements then for graduating with the honors diploma?
So the requirements for an honors diploma, they've been changing a little bit over time. They've even changed since we've been here. But it's 24 honors credits. So your honors first year engineering course does count for some of those honors credits. So by the end of you taking those, you'll have 8 of your 24. They've now gotten rid of the requirement where you need to have a certain amount of honors credits in engineering. So it can just be in any honors course. So some courses have an honors designation to them. So it'll count for honors credits. Some are specifically an honors course taught by an honors college faculty, so that has the HONR college designation. Those will also count. And then you can also do something called an honors contract with the course, and that's essentially meeting with your professor right at the beginning of a course and working on an extra project throughout the semester, so that course double counts as honors credits and it's regular credit too. So you have 24 of those honors credits, and then you also have to do something called a scholarly project. So that can be a huge range of things. That's essentially just some project to say, hey, this is a culmination of all the things that I've learned and now I'm applying it to something specific. So some people can use their senior design course that I think all engineering majors have to do. You have to take an additional philosophy course with that, and then write about kind of some more philosophical aspects of whatever your project was for your major. A lot of people do poster presentations for their research. So if you're doing like some sort of engineering research, you can present in a public poster presentation. That'll count for your honors college project. There's a ton of other things too, and you know that can just be a case of working with your advisor. But those are the two big requirements, I think.
Yeah, you covered it.
So bottom line, yeah, it is doable. It's not easy by any means. It's kind of the point of honors is to add some extra challenge and rigor. But one of the pros is you don't have to take the 6172. One of the cons, though, is that that's rolled into all the other first-year engineering subject matter, so it makes that course itself a little bit more rigorous. So definitely pros and cons. It really is a personal choice. Definitely, don't look at it as a employment bonus, because employers mostly care about what experiences you have, what do you like as a person, how's your work ethic. So being in honors can lend to some cool experiences to talk to employers about, but you can get those sorts of experiences without being in honors. Awesome. All right. Let's see. Are all the classes taught by professors or some taught by TAs, teaching assistants? What's been you all's experience with that?
I've never had a class taught by a TA.
Like solely taught by a TA?
Yeah, like so generally you're, at least for me, in ME, like so your lecture sections are going to be taught by a professor, and then kind of like Paul mentioned, you have a recitation or a lab. Those are almost always going to be taught by like a graduate teaching assistant or an undergraduate teaching assistant. But as far as actual lectures, I've never had a TA teach them.
Yeah, I think this semester I've had my first class that wasn't taught by a professor, it's taught by a doctoral student. That hasn't really affected the quality of the course at all. He still does a really good job, but 99% of my classes have been taught by professors.
I can't remember the stat. I think my students in the office have in front of them, but I think it was around 89% of engineering classes are taught by faculty. The other 11% are usually going to be graduate teaching assistants or maybe continuing lecturers, which are typically people from industry that come in. They're not really faculty, they're not professors because they don't have a PhD, they're not tenure track, but they're still extremely well qualified and they just kind of teach on a continuing basis from semester to semester. So almost anytime you're learning new material, it's almost always going to be from an actual professor who's like an expert of their field. Awesome. All right. Let's see. How hard is it to double major? This student in particular is thinking about doing a second major in German. So do you guys know anybody that's doing double majoring in engineering?
I don't know anybody who's doing a double major per se. I think that's why we have both the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary programs, so you can weave in two different, so interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, the difference between them is one combines engineering and a non-engineering degree into like its own degree essentially, and the other one has two engineering degrees merged together. So I would suggest, I think for German specifically, that you could probably get a minor. So I have a couple of friends who are minoring in languages. So one of my roommates is minoring in French. I'm getting a minor in management. And I know a couple of other people who are doing like stats and different things like that. But I don't know that engineering, if you double major, I mean, maybe you don't have to graduate in 4 years, but especially if you want to graduate in 4 years, double majoring is going to be very difficult. But there are definitely different ways for you to get that other degree that you're looking for without doing a full-on double major.
I do know that the College of Liberal Arts just started something. It started a program where now you don't have to take the core requirements for the College of Liberal Arts in order to get your double major in a liberal art field. So you can do an engineering major and then just take like the German specific classes that you might want to do, and then you could double major from that, which is still, you know, significantly more credits than doing a minor, but they have made it a lot more accessible to people to do a double major in engineering and something in liberal arts.
Yeah, a guy in this organization is doing aeronautical engineering and communications, and I think it boils down to like maybe 24 extra credits for
typically,
him.
and sometimes some of them even double count. Like some of those 24 extra credits double count with ones that are required by your major plan, like your engineering plan of study.
Yeah.
Engineering in a foreign language is definitely a little bit more doable of double majors. There are even some preset tracks for that. I think mechanical engineering in German and mechanical engineering in Spanish, I believe, are some already preset double major tracks to choose from that I know of. And then, as we mentioned, liberal arts just made it easier. So now it used to be maybe like 36 extra credits to try to double major with liberal arts. Now it's only 24 typically, and as I said, a lot of those double count. So, as Savali said, though, double majoring, it's not usually necessary. Minors can usually allow you to get what you're looking for. I put up signs, I promise. So usually doing a minor or even multiple minors. Is it CC that has like 3 or 4 minors?
I feel like she might. There's people who have like 3, like management and economics.
Bringing in credit from high school helps for minors, and especially for double majors. If you are like dead set on a double major,
engineering
then bringing in credit from high school can really help with that. But so I don't want to say double majoring with engineering and something that's like technical is impossible. It's just going to be very hard, and it might extend your time to graduate, and it's usually not necessary. It's usually a minor can get what you're looking for. Do you guys want to talk about what technical electives are? Because I feel like those help too. So what are technical electives?
So tech electives are basically like selective classes that are kind of built into every single major that you can take basically in any engineering major or in even some non-engineering majors. So within mechanical engineering, there's a list of like 100 classes that we can take in like aeronautical, biomedical. There's some management classes, some upper level like math, if that's your thing,
Science, physics.
Basically, they're like, so we have 3 technical electives and 3 mechanical engineering electives in mechanical engineering. So that's 3 classes you can take really in any major that are kind of upper level, and then 3 like specific mechanical engineering selectives, I guess. And in that way, you can kind of like design your own major. So if you have a specific interest, like for me, I'm interested in manufacturing, like basically how things are made. So I'm going to be taking classes in like design for manufacturability, welding engineering. There's a toy design class. So really not everyone that goes through a Purdue engineering major, like if both of us were to be mechanical engineers, we wouldn't go through the same track most likely. So if you have a specific interest within the major, your tech electives can kind of help you fit your major to that interest.
Yeah. And a lot of times you can double count those towards the minor too.
So I use my technical electives. So the way industrial engineering works is you need 15 credit hours of technical electives. 9 of those don't have as many specifications, but 6 of them have to be upper level industrial engineering classes. But for the 9 other credit hours, I just took a lot of management classes, so I needed to take those classes anyways. And for my minor, I actually only needed to take 2 extra classes, but I had taken some credit from high school. I took 1 class over the summer because I had some time, and so that's how I was able to just incorporate all that into my plan of study, and without graduating a semester later or anything like that.
Yeah, and in ME, you can get an electrical engineering minor with no extra classes. So you can just use all your tech electives for WE classes and get a minor without taking a single extra class, which I think is kind of difficult. Like I don't love circuits, but I consider doing it.
Yeah, so it's there's a lot of flexibility in the whole process. I mean, there's even with the tech electives, it's like an unofficial minor even. And sometimes, they're concerned like, well, without a double major, will employer, like, I'm not going to get the job I want. It's like, I don't think, an employer is not going to care about a double major, just like they don't really care what your minor is. Again, they're more interested in what experiences you have, what knowledge you have. So doing the minor is a way of getting that double major and everything but the actual official capacity of a double major. And I don't think an employer would be any more or less impressed either way, if that makes sense. All right. What about, we've got some questions about what are the general elective requirements. So if it's Common Core, right, is what Purdue calls it, like the Common Core requirements. So you can Google the Purdue Common Core. That's all students at Purdue have to take these kind of classes. Then we'll talk about what the kind of overall gen ed requirements are and maybe what you guys have taken so far for those.
I've taken some weird classes. To be honest, I don't remember what exactly counted as my gen ed. So part of those management classes, I know 9 of the credits, so 3 of the classes that I took counted towards the tech elective, but the other ones counted as gen eds. I took Epics, and that counted for one of my electives as well. So Epics is a program here at Purdue, and you're able to match with a community partner, and it's usually a 1 credit hour class per semester. So I did it for 3 semesters, got 3 credits, and that all counted for essentially 1 class. They break it up, but that all can be found online, like Ari was saying, and so I suggest you take a look at that. But I don't really know all the specifics of it or what classes that I took specifically counted towards them. I think also some of those history classes that I took from high school and my upper level Spanish classes also counted towards them.
There's a certain amount, at least in civil engineering, there's a certain amount of general electives that have to be 300 level plus, so upper level general electives. It's not all of them, but like for example, for some of the courses that I've taken in it, so like I had mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast that I'm kind of interested in policies. I've actually taken a few political science courses, and those have filled in some of my general elective credits, and I just took those because I think they're interesting. So, I mean, Teddy had talked earlier about technical electives kind of moving and self-designing in some capacity within the confines of your major, you know, what your interests are and trying to, you know, kind of meld them into whatever your engineering major you're in. General electives, you know, are another way to do that too.
Yeah. Nice, yeah, and there's a whole lot of courses to choose from. So the categories, there's like 2 different human cultures categories. There's an information literacy, which is basically the engineering 131 course counts for that. Oral communication, which the COM 114 class most all students take, counts for that. Quantitative reasoning, which is like statistics, even the math classes can count towards that. Science, technology and society, and written communication. So those are the main categories. I mean, I remember I took history of aviation for one of my human cultures requirements. That was a blast. It was really fascinating to learn about history of aviation and counted towards that. So again, there's lots of ways to kind of tweak it. It may sound boring. They take some of these categories that have nothing to do with engineering, but there's so many to choose from. You can usually find at least 1 or 2 classes that are you actually interested in taking, if not even more than 1 or 2. Have you guys taken summer classes or taken any online classes through Purdue?
I've not. Yes.
Yes.
I took 1 class over the summer my freshman year with IUPUI, so it's one of technically like our regional campuses, but I took Calc 3 there and had the credit transfer over to Purdue.
Sure.
And it was pretty easy since it was part of the Purdue network. I went and got a letter grade. It counted towards my GPA. The transcript got sent over really quickly, so there wasn't really too much problem with that.
Yeah, because it's all part of the Purdue record. So that's one thing to note. If you take any courses at a Purdue regional campus, so Purdue Northwest, IPFW, where I guess now it's just Purdue Fort Wayne. IU dropped out of that whole agreement.
Okay.
Or IUPUI. If you take any courses at our regional campuses, the credit will transfer as well as the grade. That's something to because if you take courses at any other university or community college outside of the Purdue network, only the credit will transfer. So let's just say that if you do take it at a Purdue regional campus, make sure you get a good grade because that will stay with your credit. Anybody else take any summer courses at Purdue or online?
Yeah, so I took statics online, so that's ME 270 online summer after my freshman year. I went on co-op for a semester after that, so that's basically where it's a program through Purdue where you can take a semester off school and go and work for a company. And so I took statics the summer before that, and then when I was on co-op, I took physics 241 online. So basically, they just have lectures that professors have filmed kind of like Paul mentioned earlier in the broadcast, like there's just like a video, I guess, of like a PowerPoint where they're writing notes, and it's, you know, they're talking at the same time. You can just
like discussion boards too, to like chat with your classmates.
And it's pretty interactive, so like the TAs are always very, very available during summer, like if you have any questions or anything like that, and then you submit homework and everything like normal. It's just not in person. So I thought it was pretty well set up. I enjoyed it. I definitely don't regret doing it. And it's nice in summer. It's a little more condensed because, you know, there's less days in summer than there is, so you'll have lecture every single day, but it's definitely a good thing to do, I think, if you have the time.
It's also just much more laid back and relaxed in the summer. It's kind of nice, both the student and the staff.
Not quite as difficult,
There's also, for those of you that are planning on coming to Purdue this fall, we have what we call early start. So you can actually start on campus this summer taking 2 or 3 classes. you can do a hybrid where some are online, some are on campus. You can do some that are entirely online. So you can do an early start this summer while still just from the comfort of your own home, and kind of get a jump start on the classes here at Purdue. So that's an option as well. Before you even started your first fall on campus, you can start the summer instead. So Purdue is trying to offer more courses over the summer, as well as more courses available online, especially for those that want to do co-op, because that's one of the kind of disadvantages maybe of co-op is that it might take you 5 years to actually graduate, since you're going to be off campus 3 to 5 times to work. You could take some courses while you're off campus, and so it still would take you'd still graduate in 4 years, but it also mean you might graduate in fewer like actual semesters on campus. So it might take 5 years to graduate, but it's only 8 semesters of tuition of actually taking classes at Purdue. So if you're able to take courses while you're off on co-op, it might be 7 semesters. So you've saved a whole semester of tuition, as well as getting a whole ton of money when you're on your co-op. So again, all these sorts of ways to add flexibility, be able to allow you to do things you want to do, and get it out as soon or as long as you want to. Hopefully you want to get out sooner than longer, although college is great. It's wonderful. But
gotta enjoy it while you're here.
So kind of on the same theme, sort of, what has been your least favorite and or hardest class so far? And what did you do to kind of overcome that or to survive?
It was dynamics for sure.
Dynamics.
Lecturing dynamics. It was just a tough course. That's like a notoriously hard course. I think every major has 1 or 2 of those courses where like just it's always been like that. The material's just tough. There's not even much. Somehow it has to do with the teaching, but most of the time it's just the course material itself is very difficult to understand. And a lot of that was using the resources available to me. I had mentioned help rooms earlier. I was in those help rooms 2 or 3 times a week. Getting help from the TAs that were there that could help walk me through some of those problems. Obviously you go in, you try it on your own, you get as much done as you can, come with good questions, and then the TAs aren't there to tell you how to do the homework problems, but they're there to walk you through kind of your thought process so you can get there on your own. And I think that led to a much greater understanding for me. And then obviously just being consistent with going to lecture and doing the homeworks and things like that.
Yeah. I think for me, so dynamics was also difficult for me, the mechanical engineering version, but I took a materials course that just didn't really interest me that much, and for that reason I think it was kind of difficult because I wasn't really looking forward to learning the material. I wasn't quite as engaged in the lectures and everything, and it's definitely I'm sure you guys would agree, it's easier to learn stuff when you when you're interested in it and you can see an application in your future for it, I guess. And so whenever you're taking classes that you enjoy, I've taken some pretty difficult classes, fluids in mechanical engineering is very notoriously hard, but I think it's really interesting. I think it's fun, and so it's easier for me. I don't mind doing it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, mine's just kind of a combination of what they both said. So mine was an electrical engineering class, so similar to Teddy, it just wasn't very interesting to me in what I wanted to be doing with my engineering degree. So it just was a little bit harder for me to pick up the material and really stay motivated to be in the class. But like Paul was saying, I went to lecture every morning. I made sure I was doing all of my homeworks. I tried to get as much help as I possibly could by going to supplementary instruction sessions that happen in the evening, just to get some extra practice with stuff. But for industrial engineering, our really intensive course ended up being my favorite course I've ever taken in Purdue, and that's just because I love the course material. There was a semester-long project that went through it, and it took up all of my time that semester, but I came out with a working product, essentially, that I was really proud of and that I was able to show off to people and say, hey, you know what, I just spent all my semester doing this, but it works, it's awesome. And it's still, what I'm talking about 2 years later.
Nice. So on that note, what's your favorite class that you guys have had so far?
Sophomore design for me in mechanical engineering was super fun. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, very hands-on. They give you a prompt in the beginning of the semester that's really, really broad. So for us, it was design something to help pets. This semester's was make something better. So obviously super, super broad. You can kind of take that in a lot of directions. So my group and I spent basically the entire semester designing and then prototyping a food and water dispenser for pets. So basically if you wanted a cup of food at 4 p.m. or something, we designed a device that could do that. And we 3D printed the whole thing, put it all together, and it ended up working, and it was really fun. It was pretty cool for me as being the design lead, I guess, to see it come together and see it work. And in addition, you also weren't just designing it, you were looking at how are you going to market it, how is it going to perform in the economic setting. So you kind of took everything into account like that you would in a normal product. And so I could see kind of the real applications, and it was just really fun to like just build something the whole semester. Definitely rewarding.
I actually talk about Teddy's project on my tours all the time, so that was also one of my favorite classes, but I didn't even take it. I would say for me, my favorite class was my hydraulics class, so I think that's kind of equivalent to what other majors call fluids, but in civil engineering we call it hydraulics. So civil engineering is actually kind of interesting. There's 9 different concentrations within it. It's one of the only majors to do that. I believe Aero and Astro also does that in some capacity. But we have a lot of open space to go into different kind of sectors of civil engineering since it's such a broad major. But it's actually the class that got me interested in my concentration now, which is hydraulics and hydrology. So it's working with water resources. And my professor in that course was my favorite professor I've ever had at Purdue. Made the course really fun, really engaging, and even though the course material itself is difficult, it made me really want to learn it, and I found it really interesting. And I think that sometimes that just comes from either having a spectacular professor, getting you interested in it, and then once you build that interest in yourself a little bit, then you're more motivated to learn more about the lecture material. Maybe even go above and beyond what you're learning in class. And that's kind of set me on the path I'm going on now.
Nice. Any favorite classes that weren't engineering related?
I would say I took Intro to Environmental Policy last semester. I love that class. I mean, I've been talking about policy throughout the night and environmentalism, so it's kind of a mix of those things, but I still talk about those concepts that I learned in that class all the time, and honestly, even just to frame issues that like I might not even be talking about in class, just in casual discussion with my friends or something like that. I think it's really helped me understand some of the legislation and things that have been going on both in this country and the world, and I just found that class fascinating.
Yeah. And I took a sports and politics class, so I'm a big NFL football fan, and so we looked at like the NFL anthem protests. We looked at like historical like intersections, I guess, between sports and politics. It was super discussion based. Like there wasn't a whole lot of homework or anything. We would just go in for, it was a power hour, which means it's like an hour and 15 minutes, and we would go in and just talk about different things that had happened and talk about what we thought about it, and it was really fun. And I kind of formed a relationship with the professor because of that. He's like kind of, I guess, a mentor for me. We like lift weights once in a while together, which is really fun. But it was an overall good class, and it wasn't super intensive, but it was fun just to like take a step back from all the engineering and just like think about like ideas and talk about things. And I love sports, so it was fun.
And that was an honors class, right?
That was an honors class, yeah.
Oh, so real quick before we get to Chevalier, we did have somebody ask: can non-honors students take honors classes?
Yes.
Yes? I don't know the answer to that.
If there's space,
If
yes.
there's space.
Okay. That's something that you kind of have to set up with your advisor, but you can if there's still like space once all the honors kids get like dibs.
Gotcha. Sorry, that just made me think if I saw that. Chevalier, any favorite class outside of engineering?
One of my favorite classes is actually the one that I'm in right now. I'm taking golf this semester.
Nice.
Yes.
But I didn't know that Purdue, they offers like some bowling classes, golf classes, tennis, and some other more sports-based ones. So like
there's tennis.
Yeah, it's a good way to kind of take a break, like Teddy was saying, from engineering and some of the more intensive courses that we have to take. Golf, in my line of work, like I'm going into business and into consulting, and it's actually a useful skill to have, and I don't really know how to golf.
So what does the class entail? Are they teaching you to golf, or are you just going out to golf? Do you have to like take quizzes? Like what is the actual class?
Yeah, so we show up, ours is Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's about 2 hours. We have 5 quizzes that we have to do, and we'll bring them to class on our own, and there's one final exam. But up until this week, we've been on the driving range, so we have a teacher, the class about 15, 20 people, and we'll go through every single club in our bag and learn how to swing it and, what the ideal situation for using it is. And this week on, so today I had my golf class, we actually went on the course and we played 2 holes, which was really fun because I hadn't really been on a golf course since I was like 7 and my dad sent me to golf camp. So it was fun, but it's a really fun skill to have. It kind of just adds to things that Purdue provides. It's not just, a straight up engineering education. You get education in other fields that are useful in life too.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. We'd kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is kind of a more specific question. So the student's planning on using AP credit to get out of general chemistry. So 4 or 5 on the AP chemistry test will get you credit for both of our Chem 115 and Chem 116 courses. So they're asking, would it be a bad idea to go into the CS 159 course, even though, like in this case, my industrial engineering peers will not be in that class?
I say no. Like, it's not a bad idea to do that. CS 159, so depending on if the question was you're planning on going into a major that you don't need you don't need CS 159 for, I still say do it because coding is really prevalent in everybody's life, no matter what engineering you're in. The sooner you take it, the more knowledge you're going to have. So let's say you take it your freshman year, you're taking Engineering 131, you don't do coding quite yet, but the next semester you're doing MATLAB, that puts you just one leg up from MATLAB and how to learn another coding language. Coding, if you've never done it, is similar to just a foreign language. Take Spanish and Italian, for example. They're really connected languages, so once you know Spanish, you can pick up Italian a little bit easier than if you just started from scratch. I think coding's the same way. It's just kind of different syntax and understanding the little nuances, but the way to think like a coder and to think how you are going to program something stays the same. So I would say definitely do it. That'd be a really good use of, I think, your semester and your time.
Yeah, and not to say that your cohort, like other classmates, I mean, there are a lot of people that bring in credit from AP, and so there are probably going to be a lot of other first semester engineering students that are taking the CS 159 course as well. So I wouldn't even worry about the social aspect of it either. Of, you know, everyone in the class are probably still going to be the same boat as you, as well as maybe some upperclassmen, or at least maybe somebody a semester ahead of you or something like that. But yeah, anytime it comes to AP credit, it really is a personal call, but very rarely would it put you at a disadvantage. And I think the only time it would is if you, when it comes to like math or physics, where you weren't really like comfortable with the material, but you went on to the next level anyway. That happened for me with the foreign language. I took 1 year of Spanish in high school, my senior year. I came to Purdue, and when I was on campus in the summer to register for classes, I took my placement test. And nobody told me you weren't supposed to guess on a placement test. You were only supposed to answer ones you knew. So I took like to typically take a test, and I'm a pretty good test taker. So I tested into Spanish 3 at Purdue. So when I ultimately decided to take Spanish 3, I didn't decide to start in 2 or even retake 1. I started in 3, and I was so behind. It was a terrible mistake. I should never have done that. So, but that's rare. So typically when it comes to AP, especially if it's not STEM related, like arts, humanities, take that credit and run, because it's going to free up, as we mentioned earlier, for minors and those sorts of things. So I wouldn't stress out too much about it. It's typically only going to help you rather than hurt you. All right, we've had a lot of questions rolling in about internship co-ops. We've kind of alluded to them, spoken a little bit about them earlier. We're past our 1 hour part of the broadcast, so we can start talking about some other things outside of academics a little bit, I guess. So let's talk about just internship and co-op opportunities. How do you get them? What are the career fairs like? How did you get your experiences? Kind of start at the ground level with this.
Okay.
I can do the classic. So my one internship experience and my full-time job both came from our Industrial Roundtable Career Fair. It's one of the biggest student-run career fairs in the country, actually, with about 350 to 400 employers coming every year, recruiting specifically Purdue engineers. It happens in September, so to get prepared for that, I usually go to our career center. They do resume reviews and mock interviews. So my freshman and sophomore year, I did a mock interview with them just to get myself prepared, since I'd never done an actual technical or professional interview before. But every year I still take my resume to them just to make sure all the formatting's correct, all the words that I'm using are actually meaningful, and just kind of go through it that way. My sophomore year of college is when I looked for my first internship, and I went up and talked to a bunch of recruiters. I just had a bunch of resumes in my hand. And talked to a bunch of people, got a couple of emails back saying, hey, we want to interview you. And actually by the end of the Industrial Roundtable week, so Tuesday and Wednesday is IR, by the Friday afternoon I had an internship lined up for the following summer, which is really awesome, not having to worry about that for the entire year. My full-time opportunity happened the same way. So I talked to someone in September, I got an interview for end of September, early October, and by the end of October I had a full-time job lined up for the following summer, so for July. So it's a really big weight off your shoulders. Purdue has really good industry connections, so it's really not that hard to find internships, to be honest. I'm always getting emails about internships or full-time opportunities that still need people. They ask for resumes all the time. Employers are on campus all the time. So it's a really good place to find one of those professional opportunities here at Purdue, just because we have so many connections just around the country and honestly around the world too.
Yeah, that's pretty thorough. Anything else? What have you done? Like, what internships have you had?
Yeah, so this past summer, I interned in Indianapolis. I worked for an it was a mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, architectural firm. So they did building systems, and I was an architectural engineering intern. So essentially, I worked with HVAC, so like ductwork, and then also plumbing and buildings. And I got that through the civil engineering career fair. So some of the engineering colleges or engineering majors have their own specific career fair. So the civil engineering actually, I believe, has the largest one here. So this past year, we had 116 companies come, specifically recruiting civil engineering students, Purdue civil engineering students. And so that's a really awesome opportunity because that's a little more focused than some of the bigger career fairs that are recruiting all different types of engineering majors. You go there and you know that every single company you're going to be talking to is interested in civil engineering. I mentioned earlier that civil engineering is very broad. You're not going to be interested in every single company that's there. And it's nice. They do this for Industrial Roundtable. They did it for this career fair. They do it for some of the other career fairs we'll talk about in a second. But they have an app. Or at least a guidebook online that's going to list all of the companies, a little description about them, and then a link to their website so that you can go on and learn more about them, some of the projects that they work on, kind of what working at the company, being an intern for that company will look like. So you can narrow down your list and do some preparation for the companies that you want to talk to while you're there to get the most out of your experience. But yeah, so I got my internship this past summer at that career fair. So that one happened in October. It was a very similar experience to Shivali's, and that you just go out and talk to the recruiter. They will either offer you an interview on the spot on campus the next day, or have you come in. For me, since it was in Indianapolis, which is only about an hour away from Purdue's campus, they had me come down to their office the next week, and I interviewed at their office. It was on like a Thursday or Friday or something. When I wasn't busy with class, and then they offered me the job a few weeks after that. So I had the job locked down by November that year. So that's just another option in order to find an internship. And then Teddy, I don't know if you want to talk about how you did yours.
Sure. So I started off with a co-op, and I actually got that at Expo, which is our career fair in the spring. So it's a little smaller than Industrial Roundtable. It's about 150 companies. But I got that there second semester freshman year. I worked for John Deere last summer, so I actually got that online. Just about every company will have like online applications for different positions, and I just put my resume into a few jobs that I was interested in, and then I got an email a few weeks later that they wanted to do like just a pretty brief phone interview, and then I had an on-site interview. And I'll be working for Boeing next summer, and that was actually kind of a unique experience. So I got that at IR, but I had my interview and I got done at like 4:30 or something, and I got a call at 5:15 saying that I had a job. So I found out 45 minutes after my interview, like first week in September, that I was going to have a job for this upcoming summer. So not a whole lot of time of waiting around. Companies really want Purdue engineers. They don't want, honestly, other companies like snatching them out from under their grasp, I guess. So like they try to get you the offer as soon as they can. And there's so many opportunities to get jobs here.
Yeah. What was it? 1,700 unique employers visited campus last year to recruit. That's unique employers, not even just how many times companies were on campus.
Yep.
3 dozen career fairs. There's lots of opportunities, as well as the old-fashioned of just applying online as well. So lots of opportunities. Purdue really carries a lot of weight when you're applying to jobs, when you're talking to recruiters. That really helps.
And in civil engineering too, we actually have a lot of companies just come in just kind of randomly throughout the year. So we've even still over the last few weeks had a bunch of companies come in, and we'll probably average at least 1 per week. Just a firm coming in, holding an info session. They might have pizza there or something. You go learn about their company, and then you can connect with some of their recruiters there, and they're still looking to hire. So it's not like if you don't get a job through one of these big career fairs that we've been talking about, that your chances are over. You're not going to have any opportunities offered through Purdue. I mean, a lot of the times, at least in civil engineering, it might be like this in some other majors too. The companies get a better idea of how many interns they're actually going to need once it gets closer to the summer, because they see kind of how the projects are shaking out, how much work they have to do. So a lot of times they'll come back through and be hiring more interns too. So it's not like you struck out if you don't necessarily get one of those earlier career fairs.
Yeah. How about after freshman year? Do you know anybody, or did any of you have internships after your freshman year?
I mean, if you want to kind of co-op after a freshman year, I guess you did.
Yeah, co-op absolutely counts.
So I didn't. My internship after my freshman year, it was working with the civil engineer. I actually worked for my county stormwater management department. I primarily did data collection. I did a lot of geographic information systems work. So I mean, it was relevant to what I do now. It wasn't necessarily a technical internship, like kind of a traditional engineering internship that you would think about, but it was definitely a useful experience that I actually just talked about in an interview last week. So that was a case of applying online. Sometimes it's just kind of like having a connection that has, you know, let you know when these opportunities are available. So like, for example, like one of my my aunt is actually a civil engineer, and she was just like, hey, I know this guy that I used to work with. He currently works at this department. They're looking for interns. Maybe try to apply. And so sometimes you can definitely lean into your network that you've met, whether that's family or other people that you've met, mentors that you've met here. That can be another great, another great way to get.
I was just in Denver and I was wearing Purdue gear and was talking with somebody.
Traveling,
they were needing some more engineering students for the interns, and so I was linking them up. And so they're always looking. Our office, we had a couple companies last week that were emailing us for we're looking for interns. Like, well, we only talk with high school students, but we'll pass you on to the different engineering majors. So I mean, employers are always looking for students. And so basically, as long as you have been getting involved, you're doing well in your classes, and you take advantage of our career services center to make sure you interview well and all those sorts of things. I mean, there's all sorts of opportunities. We had some questions about international specific. It's definitely a little bit harder. The opportunities aren't quite as plentiful because obviously the companies have to sponsor you. In many cases they don't, since you already have a student visa, but there's also some misconceptions out there on the employer's side. But all that said, at least for Industrial Roundtable, a lot of our larger career fairs, when they're putting out the list of all the employees attending, they typically almost always list,
They do.
Words. They almost always list if they're hiring only U.S. citizens, natural citizens, what kind of visas they might be hiring. So you'll know before the career fair what opportunities are available for you, and you'll be able to narrow your list down yourself too. So they're not as plentiful, but there's still amazing opportunities. So definitely don't lose heart. It just might be a little more work on your end of looking at the opportunities. And
I've had international friends in engineering that have had internships.
Oh yeah.
I think that goes through. Oh, go ahead.
You first.
I was gonna say that goes with freshman internships as well. I personally didn't get one, but I know a lot of people who did get internships. It's not as easy to do because a lot of them are recruiting for specifically certain majors, and the time you're not going to be in a major. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to hire you, though. You just have to do a little bit more research, similar to the visa status that companies do. They'll show you what level they're hiring for, what majors they're hiring for, so you can filter on the website beforehand and kind of write down 10 companies who are recruiting exactly who you are, and then go and talk to them.
Nice.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, my sophomore design team last semester was myself, a student from India, a student from China, and a student from Egypt. And two of them are currently working, they're working this semester for the exact same company on the exact same project. So
nice.
They were both able, it was kind of funny, they got that while we were on the same team, but they were able to find internships, and they had more than one offer. I think they had 2 or 3 offers.
Nice.
So
yeah.
there's opportunities for sure.
Absolutely. Basically, the only time it gets really tricky is I would say aeronautical engineering, because a lot of times aerospace projects, even some of the mechanical engineering stuff, might be if it's funded at all by the U.S. Government, especially if it's Department of Defense. Then we obviously get into it where it has to be U.S. citizens only, but that's not the only opportunities in aeronautical engineering or mechanical engineering. So. Yeah, it's definitely possible. It's definitely doable. It was around 90% almost of our students that graduated from engineering last May had at least one or more professional experience by the time they graduated. And we're about a third almost international students. No, 15%. I'm totally blanking on my numbers right now.
At least at the university.
It's 18. So hang on, it's worth, it's terrible. Oh man, I'm blanking entirely on stuff. Anyway, we have a lot of international students.
15 to 20%.
It's somewhere around there. Man, it feels like it's a Friday. It's only Tuesday. But anyway, that's what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of international students here, and most of our students are having had at least one internship or professional experience by the time they graduated. So hopefully that will show it's definitely doable, definitely possible. When you co-op, during a semester, did you co-op during one of the fall or springs?
Yeah.
So when you co-op, is it difficult to leave campus and all your friends for the semester? And what's it like to do a semester over the summer, since it kind of changes your?
So typically, my co-op was just one session. It was kind of like an internship during the year, and it was definitely a little difficult to leave my friends. I missed them. I missed Paul. But I think it's worth it, honestly. A lot of people are kind of nervous about it. But I worked in LaPorte, Indiana, so I was only about an hour and a half from here, so I was still able to come back on weekends sometimes. I wasn't too far away, and I think it's a good experience to go back, or to go and work for a semester and come back. I definitely came back and I had some new perspectives on college, like about the things that I was prioritizing. And so I think it was worth it for me. I think the people who do go on co-op definitely don't regret it, you know? It's like definitely hard being away from your friends and everything like that, but it's a good experience, and work experience is really important, and it's a good way to do it. But your typical co-op session, so if you're doing it during the year, it's going to be like 16 weeks if you're doing a semester, but you can also do them during summers, which is just basically an internship. In that case, you're just like signing on to return for multiple internships with companies. It's generally something you like work out with them. If you want to do all summers, they'll probably let you. If you want to, you know, they're pretty flexible with when you do your sessions. It's like you can do that. It doesn't have to be during a semester.
Yeah. Typically, they want for like our formal co-op programs, for the 3 sessions, they usually want 1 of each semester, so like 1 fall, 1 spring, 1 summer over the course of your time at Purdue. The 5 session, they want 3 of those 5 to be fall or spring. Yep. But even then, there's some flexibility in that. Even with that, they just like having them be in the fall or spring because they're longer. They're longer than the summer session. Yep. So you have longer to work, longer to get paid. I don't remember. Sorry, I kind of blinked out for a second, but I don't know if you mentioned the co-op program. There's a student organization of co-op students. And so, you know, it's kind of like PSEF, but the co-op student variant, where you get to know other students in co-op, and then a lot of them are going to be on campus in the summer when you are. So there's all sorts of ways to kind of maintain a somewhat normal social life on campus, but you still get to be able to do all the things, even if you're in co-op. You can still do epics, you can still be in bands and orchestras, you can still be in the Purdue musical organizations. I mean, anything you want to do, you can still do that when you're on campus during the semesters. So yeah, it makes it a little bit non-traditional, but it's still definitely, I would say, not that big of an issue. How do you guys find housing when you're doing internships or co-ops that aren't near campus? I would say most all are not near campus.
My company kind of helped me a little bit more. So my first one, I had to relocate to South Carolina. So I actually just emailed my boss and asked him where co-ops and interns usually lived, and he sent me just a list of places that people lived, and he also put me in contact with other interns in the area, so I got to find a roommate and lived with her for that summer. Last summer I lived at home. Actually, my internship was in Indianapolis, so I had the luxury of living at home. But a lot of times I would say that internships usually try and help you out a little bit. For example, so my first one I had to relocate, they even gave me a housing stipend, so it helped a lot with my rent and just kind of getting furniture and stuff down to South Carolina, since I was only going to be there for 2 months. Some of them do actually put you up in housing, so pretty sure John Deere, they put you up in housing.
Yeah. So with John Deere, there's universities in the area, so obviously students aren't living in dorms during that time, so they'll just, I guess, rent a dorm. Yeah. And kids live there, or they'll put you up in apartments. Just about any internship or co-op you'll have some kind of housing stipend that'll probably take off 50% of what you have to pay. Sometimes they'll pay for it all. They'll put you up in housing. This summer I'm moving to Seattle, and the Seattle housing market is kind of pricey. So they hooked me up with a travel agency, and they just found a block of housing for all their interns that all of us are going to live there. And they're taking off a significant amount of the price. So it's nice. Companies will help you out with finding housing. You're never going to be on your own.
Yeah. I've also known some students that have been looking at Airbnb for monthly rentals of Airbnb.
Yeah, Mark was looking at that too.
Because a lot of times those are fully furnished. Sometimes it might be hard to find apartment contracts that'll only contract for 3 months or month to month. Airbnb can be a good alternative. So there's all sorts of new options.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty similar. So when I interned in Indianapolis, my company fully funded my housing. So they essentially said you get up to $1,000 per month. So it was kind of up to me to find my own housing. But I mean, in Indianapolis, it's not super hard. So I actually just subleased an apartment from one of my friends that went to the university there. And then my company covered, the price of rent for that entire summer. So a lot of times you can work out a deal like that, where they'll pay for a good chunk of your housing.
Nice.
And then do you want to talk about housing when you were on co-op and kind of how you worked that out a little bit?
So when I was on co-op, I had initially signed up for a housing contract with Paul and 2 other guys. And when I found out I was going to go on co-op, Purdue made it pretty easy. You can just break your housing contract, and then So I left and I found a 4-month lease in LaPorte, Indiana. So pretty short term. There were co-ops coming in and out, so they were like familiar with that kind of process. And a lot of the landlords were like okay with that. So I found a 4-month lease and then came back. And I was actually able to, so the guy who jumped in kind of in my place, he co-opted. So I jumped back into the room with them at Purdue, which worked out perfectly. It was great. When I came back, I had a place to live. But if you weren't to have that, that was in a dorm too, so like that was pretty easy. But if you were to be like an older student and you wanted to live off campus, kind of like you mentioned, there's a community co-ops. So they'll communicate like, okay, I'm going to be gone this semester. Can someone sublease for me this semester? So like people are always coming in and out, and that way you can like kind of find housing. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, pretty much the only ways to break your dorm contract, because they are for a year, to break it after one semester is you're either graduating from Purdue, you are no longer enrolled at Purdue, or you're going on an internship or co-op that's during the semester. It's an academic work experience, and so that's a valid reason for breaking your contract. We also get that concern sometimes from students.
Yeah, and I didn't pay tuition, didn't pay for like Purdue housing while I was gone or anything, so you don't have to worry about that.
So you guys are both from Indiana. You're from out of state. We've had some questions about like stuff, like where do I get stuff for my dorm? What do I do with it over the summer? Do I have to ship it all the way from California? So what's been your experience with like just your overall things in your room? How did you get it to campus? Where did you store it?
For me, so I guess I can talk about my move between my campus or off-campus housing. A lot of students at the beginning will just come to campus if you're flying from California or wherever it might be. Come to campus. We have Target, Walmart, just about every store that you would need around here. If you want to get your furniture and bedding and whatever it might be, you can also order it to those specific stores. If you want to do it previously, it'll be waiting there for you. If you're doing that, I would suggest coming a little bit earlier so you can get all your stuff together. But when you're living in the dorm, you don't need a bunch of stuff. When you live off campus, what I did was we got like a U-Haul truck, and I took a bunch of stuff from my house in Indianapolis and moved it back up here. And what I made sure I did was when I moved places, I lived in an apartment for 2 years, and now I live in a house on campus. I had my leases overlap, so I actually just kind of left my stuff in my apartment for over the summer, and my lease for my apartment ended in the middle of July, and my lease for my house started at the beginning of July. Nice. So I just kind of moved stuff from one side of campus to the other side of campus. They also know kind of in the area that there are a lot of students who are leaving for the summer and might not need all their stuff. So I know a couple of my friends, there are storage pods that you can just store your stuff in for a couple of months.
Guys and Dollies will store.
That's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, really, Guys and Dollies. I used that a couple times when I was a student.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I live pretty close to campus, a little over an hour, so for me it was pretty easy to get my stuff back home before making the transition and moving like whatever things I needed down to my apartment in Indianapolis, and then just kind of bringing it back for the semester. I could just drive it down, but at least just to kind of play off that the storage unit thing, Teddy and our other roommate, obviously we're going to be in different places this summer. And our leases don't overlap, so we need a place to put our stuff. So a very common thing to do is to find a storage unit, just a place to store, especially your bigger things that you're not going to be able to just like ship home or take home in between like going to your whatever you're doing that summer. So that's a pretty common thing to do. A lot of people have to do that, especially people that are coming from further away. So they have their stuff ready to move in, when they come back to campus the next semester.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, there's lots of options for that. I remember when I was moving in as a freshman. It added a truck. We had the whole back bed of the truck full of boxes and stuff, and it was like a 4-door truck, and there was just enough room for me to sit in the back seat and like stow boxes to my left when I was moving in as a freshman. I think I ended up sending at least half of it back, and the next semester or the next year when I was moving into the dorms, it was like I took up the back seat. I think that was it. Yeah. You really don't need much.
Yeah, you figure out what you need.
You can even rent, like really all you need is like maybe a mini fridge, a microwave, and a TV, and maybe a futon or two, depending on how you do your beds. And you can rent all of that through university residence or third-party services that they contract with. I don't think you can get a TV, but you can find a TV nearby through Best Buy or whatever, or people on campus that are selling them. There's some Facebook groups for like people selling their stuff, like within the Purdue network, like Purdue Free for Sale, where you can like put up stuff for sale. That's also really common at the end of spring and the end of summer to get stuff for the next year. So like your freshman year, spring and summer, if you're around, you can get a whole lot of stuff from people that are graduating. You can buy off them for super cheap or even free. So it's usually not much of an issue for that either. There's lots of ways to make it work. Do you guys live close to your classes, or is it hard to be close to the engineering campus? Where all have you guys lived?
We both live like 3 minutes that direction.
Nice.
It's so fast.
We're really close.
Paul rolls out of bed at 8:22 and still makes it to his 8:30 class.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, certainly when you move off campus, so in residential campus at least, which you're going to be staying as a freshman, some of the buildings are a little bit closer to campus, so it makes it a little easier to walk there in 10-ish minutes. Some of the ones that are further away, you can still definitely walk to campus. It might take a little bit longer, 15 to 20. We have bike lanes running all throughout campus, so if you want, it's really popular for people to either take a bike or skateboard or something like that to get you to class a little bit faster. And we also have a really awesome bus system here. So the buses run to all of the dorms, especially the ones that are further away, and we'll run a route that takes you to campus. So that's really nice. It'll get you there a little bit faster as long as you kind of pay attention to the schedule. And then, in the winter time when the weather, is not ideal, then you might want to do that too. But it's not that bad when you're on residential campus to get there. As far as off-campus goes, like Teddy had mentioned, we're actually way closer this year than we've ever been in like Purdue.
We were like pretty close.
We were pretty close. But I mean, that was just a kind of a priority thing for us. So when we were looking for housing, we wanted to pick a spot that was going to be close to campus because that's what we valued. We wanted to be able to get between home and class really quickly. There's certainly some properties that are a little bit further off campus. Generally, those might be a little bit cheaper just because they are further off campus. So, if that's kind of something that you want to prioritize, then it might be a little further off. But a lot of people can adapt to that by just, bringing, lunch or whatever you need to campus and just staying on campus until your classes are done and then just going home. I mean, we have the luxury of just going home like midday for lunch if we want, just because it's so close. But I mean, it's extremely doable to do it either way.
Yeah.
Joelle, where have you lived?
Yeah, the farthest I lived when I was off campus was down by XXX, which is still like not too far. So campus is kind of sat on a hill, and I lived about halfway down that hill. It was probably a 15 or 20 minute walk to my farthest class, but when you're in college, you just walk everywhere, so 15 to 20 minute walk isn't really that big of a deal. Now I live a little bit closer, so probably in the 7 to 10 minute range just to get anywhere, which is really nice. Definitely not the biggest deal if you live a little bit farther away, but it is really nice if that is what you want to do. If you just kind of want to have a little bit more time to sleep or do whatever, you are really close to campus. But there are plenty of properties available. So Purdue's been building a lot of different apartment buildings. We all live in houses right now, and those are a little bit harder to come by. There's only not a couple. There's still a good amount, but they fill up pretty quickly. But there are a lot of apartments around campus that are walking distance that are really nice as well, if that's what you're looking for maybe after your freshman or sophomore year of college.
Yeah. And I've never actually taken a bus since I've been at Purdue. Like, not a single time have I ever taken a bus.
You've never taken any of the city buses?
No.
None of them?
Not once. No. And that was kind of a checkbox for me when I was choosing a college. Cause like, I don't know why. It was just maybe my hill to die on. But like, I just didn't want to take buses. And I never have since I've been here. It's like really walkable. Even, I guess I have long legs, but like my furthest walk is going to be 15 minutes. My furthest walk between classes is 10 at the absolute most. So your initial walk, I guess, to maybe get from your house or your apartment or whatever to campus might be a little longer, but the actual like academic campus is like fairly condensed.
No, I absolutely took the buses in the winter. No, there's no way I'm walking around.
And most people do.
You got to build character.
Build character.
Nice.
I do it too.
Yeah. Totally lost my train of thought. You threw me off. I never haven't been on a bus. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Shoot. There's all sorts of dorms, or that's what it's saying. We're adding 2 new dorms in the next couple of years. So Purdue University residents is even expanding their capacity as well, because more students are wanting to live on campus for longer, which is awesome. And so they're building up to make sure that we can house everyone that wants to be in on-campus housing. We were in the news last year, I think, for our temporary housing and university residences. It was a compounding factor of more students who wanted to live on campus, and also more students ended up coming to Purdue than we planned on. But everyone that was in temporary housing last year was placed into an actual permanent housing unit within 1 to 2 months. I think it was most of them were within a month of being on campus. And everyone that was in temporary housing knew what they were going into. They said it's fine because they knew it was only temporary. So there's all sorts of accommodations, but then I think it's going to be for 2020. Fall 2020 is when we're hoping to have our 2 new dorms online and open. And that's just the start. Once those are finished, We're going to be adding a couple more in the years after that. So lots of plans for both on-campus and off-campus housing. It really just kind of determine what's important to you. Do you like convenience, or do you like whatever's cheap? Because you can find some really great apartments that are pretty cheap, but they're usually far off campus, and they have a shuttle that will take you in. So all sorts of opportunities available, no matter what you're looking for. Did any of you guys do a learning community your freshman year?
I did, yeah.
What did you do?
I did the Women in Engineering Learning Community. I really liked it. So essentially it's just a learning community with all girls who are in engineering, like the name suggests. But it was just one floor in Earhart Hall that just had everybody who was pretty much in my classes, just because of the way the FYE program is set up. I came into Purdue knowing a couple of people, but I decided to go random with my roommate, just kind of start college on a new foot. So I tried not to like hang out with people that I knew before, just to like, you know, make new friends and break out of that circle. And living in a learning community really helped me with that. I made a lot of friends. I ended up living with a girl for 2 years afterwards who was lived right next door to me in that learning community. And it's a really good place to find your first set of friends, but also be with people who have the same kind of common values and the same living situation as you do. So they also had a couple other components to it. So they used to bring back speakers once a month, so we'd have dinner and then talk to a woman who was in industry who had done really well in something or the other, and she'd come back and talk to us, give us a little networking session as well. And it was a really cool experience, and I really liked it, especially for my freshman year.
Nice. And neither of you guys did.
We were like technically in the honors engineering one, but
sure.
it wasn't.
Everyone
like,
is.
It wasn't like
Yeah,
a cohesive
everyone
learning community like that.
Yeah. So if you're admitted to the honors college and you accept your admission to the honors college, you will live in the honors college learning community. It may not be all engineering students with you. It might be, and you'll live in one of the honors college dorms. That is required live-in component. All of our other learning communities, the live-in component of living on the same floor with your learning community is optional, but highly recommended. Really, I highly recommend it. I didn't do a learning community, but I saw lots of other students on my floor that were in the classes I was taking. A lot of, no matter which one you do, there's all sorts of ways to build that network around you and get to know everyone on your floor. But definitely look into learning communities. I would say apply to ones you're actually interested in. Don't apply to one just to apply to a learning community. And apply to more than one if there's more than one of interest to you. I'm not exactly sure how they decide the applicants on who gets placed. I do know it's not first come, first serve. Purdue doesn't really do anything first come, first serve for incoming freshmen. We want you to have the full time to like make all the decisions you want to make. But there are some learning communities that will have more students apply than they've got spots. I think it's just kind of a holistic review of the applications. They kind of want to see why you want to be in the learning community and how it would meet into your goals. I think it's part of the factor. But definitely apply to more than one if it's of interest, but only apply to ones that you are actually interested in. They're really great, but they're not like crucial, critical. So if they're not enough interest to you, don't feel pressured to do it. It's also how I talk about honors college. It's great. There's some really cool things, but if it's not something you really think you want to do, don't worry about it. It's totally a personal call for learning communities and for honors college. Is it possible to have time to study abroad while also doing engineering? I feel like some of these are planted questions because, like, yes, you can.
Yes, 1000%.
Absolutely. We have a lot of people do it now. I mean, Purdue has put a lot of effort and resources into encouraging Purdue students to study abroad, and that does not exclude engineers at all. I don't know what the statistic is on it. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. But a lot of my friends do. One of our fourth roommate, he's in computer engineering. He's actually in Madrid right now doing a semester abroad, studying engineering classes too. So it's definitely not something that you're prohibited from doing when you're an engineering student. And a lot of engineering majors, they actually have like specific programs, kind of repeat programs with universities where they'll have like courses that they've already set up that they're like, this is guaranteed to transfer. So it works really well in your schedule. And I would say that like if you want to study abroad, completely doable. Whether that's a shorter study abroad, like for example, I'm doing a 2-week one in May. Some people do a summer session. Some people like to do a semester one. If you want to do one of those experiences, especially the semester ones, it just takes a little bit of planning. So if you come in and say, I want to do this, talk to your advisor about it, you might have to kind of rearrange the order you take a few of your classes to make sure that the classes that you're taking abroad will transfer to Purdue, but it's 100% doable.
So I spent a semester abroad. I went to Singapore a year ago. Like Paul was saying, it definitely takes a little bit of planning. So I knew I wanted to study abroad since high school. I had done an experience then, and I really liked it. And I was a little scared coming into college, especially for engineering, because I had heard from other people that it might have been a little bit harder to do just because of the rigor of the engineering courses. But since coming to Purdue, I've seen that that's actually opposite. Specifically with the School of Industrial Engineering. So for engineering, every school within engineering has their own policies for how they allow students to go abroad and what classes they can take and what universities they can go to. But the IE program has a whole list on their website that just shows you what schools IEs have previously gone to and what their partner schools are. So when I was looking, I made sure I looked for one that had a schedule that was similar to Purdue because I wanted to intern during the summer, and some of the courses ended in June or July, and that wasn't going to work for me. And I also made sure I was going to not be behind in my plan of study. So I was able to take 3 engineering courses in 1 class for my minor, so I was able to finish that up while I was over there in Singapore, and all of the classes did transfer over to Purdue. Another thing I like to note for study abroad is it's not always as expensive as people think it is. So I paid Purdue tuition when I went to Singapore. I paid Singapore housing costs, but I didn't have to pay Purdue ones, and theirs were cheaper than Purdue's. So the combination of that made Purdue, made going abroad not that expensive. And they also have different scholarships that you're able to do. So I took a class while I was there just about intercultural competence and some other things, and I was given a scholarship after going through that whole experience. So definitely possible, and it's been one of my favorite experiences while I've been in college, and it is very doable. It just takes a little bit more work. You can't just kind of stumble into it.
Fortunately, you've got your advisor, though, that helps you with all that, as well as the study abroad office. We also have the Global Engineering Programs and Partnerships office. They also help coordinate engineering-specific study abroad and service projects around the world. So there's all sorts of resources to help you plan all these things out and make sure all the logistics kind of line up. And then it won't necessarily delay your graduation date either. I don't have any exact stats on how many engineering students will study abroad by the time they graduate. I've been trying to find that. All I know is that as of like a year or 2 ago, we had more than doubled the number of engineering students that studied abroad by the time they graduated in the last prior 5 years. So more and more students in engineering are studying abroad by the time they graduate, and it's something we really want to make sure they're able to do if they want.
I know in mechanical engineering, over 40% of students, I think it's like 42 to 44% of students do have some kind of global experience, whether it's a Maymester, a spring semester, or full, any of the programs, it's 44%. I think the national average is like 7%. So like it's Purdue really encourages that. We're a really diverse school. We mentioned earlier that we're like 20-ish% international within engineering, so it's really important to get those experiences, and they make it easy, and they really make sure you can do it within the program.
Nice.
I don't know that much about GEARE, but is that worth mentioning right now?
Absolutely. Let's talk about GEARE.
I mean,
you don't know much about it.
I know a little bit. So GEARE is a program that combines studying abroad and internships and co-ops essentially, and you do it in a foreign country. So let's say, Paul just loves Spanish, and so you get a global engineering certificate, I believe, or minor while you're doing it. But you're going to be taking some classes at Purdue, so you'll take Spanish classes at Purdue and your global engineering classes while you're here. And you'll do a semester abroad in that country, I think a summer abroad, and then also an internship in that host country. So you're getting, I think that's 3 terms that you're going to be, let's say, in Spain for. And not only are you getting a learning experience, you're getting a working experience. It's something else that you get to talk about, and something else you get to experience is not only how do you learn in a new environment, how do you work, how do you communicate with people from a different country and from a different culture, and how do you mitigate any issues, that arise through that. And it's a really good experience. I didn't have the chance to do it. It does have that language component to it, though. So normal study abroads don't necessarily have it, so I got to speak English all through my study abroad, but for that one I think has just more of an emphasis on the foreign language.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, GEARE is very unique to Purdue. It's not something that any other university that we know of has quite like it, where it combines all of these things: foreign language study, 2 internships, one of them being international, a study abroad, opportunity for international research or international project in general. And it's also all within 4 years. GEARE can be done in 4 years, just like any other student that's just doing a regular engineering program. So it's very, very unique, very awesome for those that have a passion in foreign language, study abroad, and internship opportunities. So it's a great way to put all those interests into one packaged up program. So it's GEARE, G-E-A-R-E is the acronym. Stands for Global Engineering Alliance for Research and Education. That's why we just call it GEARE. It's a really long name. But definitely Google Purdue, G-E-A-R-E, Purdue GEARE. Really, really cool. There's opportunities in a lot of different countries. And so it basically depends on the language you want to study. Will then kind of dictate your times abroad. The study abroad is almost always going to be in the country where that language is spoken. The international internship, you have some more flexibility. It can be in that country or it can be in another country. We just want it to be somewhere outside of the US so you can kind of see what an engineer in another country, how that is different from how engineers in the US approach similar tasks and problems and solutions. All right, what are you guys' thoughts, opinions on the professional engineering frats and sororities? Are any of you guys in them? Because there's some that are like social, like they actually have a house, and there are some that's just like the honors fraternities and sororities. Are any of you guys in them? Do you have any opinions on them?
Specifically
For
professional ones?
Yeah.
I'm not in any.
I'm in the civil engineering honor society. It's called Chi Epsilon. So I think it's technically a fraternity. I believe.
It's like one of the honors
one of the honors
fraternities.
ones.
Yeah.
So I mean that's essentially, I think it's the top third or 25% of the class gets offered a spot in the fraternity itself. But I mean, a lot of it's just kind of meetings to we do different service events together. We put on different programming for civil engineering students. So I know we do some like fundamentals of engineering exam review sessions. We do some tutoring sessions, things like that. And then it's just kind of, got a little bit of a social aspect to that too. So we have quite a few events where, the people in the honor society just kind of hang out. But that's about my experience with it.
There is an actual at least when I was a student, there was like an engineering specific frat.
I think Triangle is the...
Triangles is one.
Triangle for men and then Phi Rho for
women.
Phi Sigma Rho for women.
Yeah.
I know Phi Sigma Rho has got a really big presence on campus, so that's the one for women. I don't think it's specific to engineering now, because I know a few people, I think it's specific to STEM, but it's primarily engineers. But I have a lot of friends in that, and they seem to really enjoy it.
There's a living component to Phi Sigma Rho. So they have a house on campus. So that's like the, I think, link between traditional Greek life and then the professional Greek life would be houses like that.
Right.
The Honor Society just for engineering, I think, is Tau Beta Pi.
Yeah, just for general engineering.
That you can apply to and be invited to. But a lot of those, just from my experience, just like hearing about them and me choosing to like either join or not join one of them, it's another organization over anything else.
Yeah.
It's less Greek life-ish and fraternity and sorority-ish than it is just another organization. So you can just look at their mission and the events that they hold and see if it lines up to what you want to be doing when you're in college. But it's less than, it's not quite fraternity and sorority.
It's not really like that.
Yeah.
It's just only a name is the only commonality, but it's called a fraternity or sorority. I think Theta Tau is the engineering fraternity.
I think Theta Tau is one.
Oh, is that the engineering one?
Yeah, that's another engineering one.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Are any of you guys in? Obviously, you guys are not. You're not in Greek life.
No, I did rush my freshman year. I just chose. It didn't seem like something that I wanted to do personally. But there are a lot of engineers who are in Greek life. My freshman year roommate was actually the president of her sorority, and then one of my other really good friends in industrial engineering was the president of the Pan-Hellenic Association at Purdue, so the one that oversees all of the sorority life on campus. So it's definitely a possibility to do Greek life and be an engineer. It's just something that the three of us chose not to do.
This is a great question from Scrapping You. Is PSEF an engineering fraternity? What is PSEF?
It's not fraternity. It feels like a fraternity sometimes. So PSEF, it's the Purdue Student Engineering Foundation. Sorry, wait a second. So it's the Purdue Student Engineering Foundation. So we're just an engineering organization. We are not a fraternity or sorority, but we are the largest engineering outreach organization on campus. So we're student volunteers that interact with prospective engineering students and their families. Essentially just advocate for Purdue and Purdue's engineering programs. We kind of stuff like this. We do a lot of tours. We do a lot of other meetup sessions where we just kind of talk about our personal experiences in engineering. So I think that's kind of how it differs from like an admissions tour or something like that. It's not really just general Purdue knowledge. I mean, although we do talk a lot about some facts and statistics about Purdue engineering, it's very much personal experiences that we've had in Purdue engineering to kind of see that side about what it's really like to be a student in it. So we do obviously like professionally those events, but then outside of it, I mean, there's a huge social component to it, and I think that's another really big benefit of being in this organization, but then also other organizations on campus, is that you're all coming together because you care about a common thing, and that brings you together. But a lot of times you'll see those social communities sprout out of that too. You become friends with people in your organization.
Definitely what Paul was saying, things like PSEF and other organizations I'm in have made my college experience what it is. We talked a lot about academics in this broadcast because that's, the primary reason that everybody's here, and obviously Purdue is an amazing engineering school. But the thing that makes Purdue home is the people that I've met here and the organizations that I've been a part of. So without PSEF, I wouldn't have met a couple of my best friends. I've met people who are in my major, and made me more comfortable to be at Purdue, and it's made it feel more like a home here. In addition to just outreach too, we do in high school design competitions. So something else that, like most organizations, we have one primary component that we do, but we have other things that we do as well. We do things like Relay for Life as an organization, host that design competition, with service events, yeah.
If you guys come to campus at any point and visit Purdue, which we encourage you to do, because Purdue is awesome, but you'll probably interact with a PSEFer in some way, whether it's giving you a tour or an information session or anything like that. You'll probably see us again.
If you've already visited, you probably run into one of these three.
Yeah.
How many are in PSEF right now?
About 50.
There's 60 currently.
60?
It's 65 are on study abroad or co-ops. We have 55 right now.
55,
Cool.
okay.
Yeah, we also had another question. Are you all friends?
Yes.
We're roommates.
We'll give it away. We'll give it away to their
Oh,
friends.
yeah, we
They
love
actually all
each
hate
other.
each other. They're just kind of putting on a good face just for the broadcast.
Yeah, far away from college.
Hey.
Good question. So that's actually, though, a really good tie-in. We had another question about how possible is it to continue other activities like sports and societies with the so-called aggressive engineering courses. And I wouldn't say, I think aggressive is a very aggressive term for the engineering courses at Purdue. I would say rigorous, sure, and challenging, sometimes challenging, but yeah, absolutely you
I think
can continue
for
those other passions.
when people think about how they'll translate their college life or their high school life into college, they kind of forget that you're not taking 8 hours of school a day. So, in high school you're doing the 8 to 3 sort of thing. Usually you have extracurriculars, so I personally played sports, so I'd be more of an 8 to 6 person before I'd actually be home. In college, you don't have that schedule at all. You're taking probably 2 or 3 classes a day, just the way it is. So maybe Monday mornings and Monday afternoons you have class, but then in the middle you have time to do all your homework. But, you don't, at least in college, a lot, like you're not getting 10, 15 hours of sleep either. Like you're getting your 8 hours, hopefully, with at least 16 hours a day. You're spending 3 to 4 of them in class, at least 12 hours a day to just do schoolwork and hang out with friends and do extracurricular activities. And I definitely encourage that just because you're going to get burnt out on school. And
Best way to survive is getting involved.
exactly, yeah.
When I, freshman year, I was like really, really focused on my grades. And pretty much all I did was homework and studying, and I didn't really leave my room or anything like that. And it wasn't super fun. And then, so I left for a semester on co-op and I came back, and I think I realized that, the most important things when it comes to being successful in a job, it's not just your technical skills, it's also like how you can relate to people, your leadership, communications abilities.
Work ethic.
I think soft skills are super, super important in a great way. They're definitely integrated into the engineering program. But I think a great way to do that is to get involved in some organizations. So when I came back, I really threw myself into some clubs like PSEF and got really involved. And it definitely made college a lot better. So when you guys go to college, get involved, try out some clubs. If they're not for you, that's okay.
Don't
waste your time.
Don't waste your time. That's a big thing I want to touch on. So once you get to college, there's tons and tons of organizations and opportunities available. And it's kind of hard to feel out, which ones are going to particularly resonate with you. So definitely, like Teddy said, try things out. And another thing is don't be afraid to, stop being associated with an organization if it's not the right one for you. Obviously, you can do that gracefully at a semester or something like that. But if something's not the right thing for you, it's not like, if you join an organization, then you're just stuck in it for 4 years, So I definitely encourage you guys to check out what, whatever university you end up going to. But like at Purdue, we have almost 1,000 organizations here on campus. If you start in one, you love it, great. Then keep going and put some time into it, invest in it. You'll get a lot out of it. But if you end up not liking it as much as you thought you would, then save your time and put it in somewhere else.
I think for also just part of the college experience, a lot of us are going to college in the end goal to get a job or go on to get a master's degree, whatever it is. in all of my experience, I'm a senior now. I've had enough experience like with employers and stuff like that. No one's ever given me an integral or a derivative. It's like, hey, go and do this math problem or go and do this. Yep. They're always asking me, tell me about a time that you worked in a team and did this. Tell me about a leadership experience that you've had. How did you overcome this problem? So obviously your degree is really meaningful, and that's the reason why employers are initially talking to you. But in an interview itself, they know that you have all those skills because they know what the strength of a Purdue Engineering degree is. How they, measure who you are specifically is through the extracurricular activities that you have on campus and what you decide to do with your 4 years here.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We have a really important question here from one of our reviewers.
Oh,
where do you guys get your haircut? I'm guessing that's a compliment.
Assuming it's to these two, because
I can't really answer that because I get my hair cut once a semester, and it's when I go home because I don't trust anybody but my hairdresser I've always had to cut my hair.
Well, that's my
so it's kind of funny because at the beginning of the semester my hair is short, by the end I kind of look like this. So I use mousse, in case you guys were wondering. That's why it's kind of together. But Teddy can probably answer that question a little bit better.
There's like a lot of barbershops on campus. It's called Henny's Hair Salon. It's like a good haircut. Pretty solid overall. I'm not saying my hair game is great, but like it got a lot better when I came to college. So,
the rhino horn.
Yeah, the rhino horn. I don't use mousse. It just stays up.
It just does it naturally.
It just does it naturally. Nothing in it.
Wow, nice. Did you get your haircut around campus?
No, I also go home, but girls don't really get their haircut that often, so I get mine done like once or twice a year, and then it ends up like this. So
there's tons of places that there's a lot of options.
There's also great clips. If that's your.
I've
been a great clips guy for most of my life.
Well, and I think it's great clips, or maybe it's master cuts. One of them, like if you show your Purdue ID, you get like 10% off. Woo! Okay. They also will take an extra 10% off your hair, but whether they meant to or not. Sorry, no.
That was a good one, Ari.
No, there are a lot of great options for getting your hair cut. That's a great question. Thanks for the fun question. If you're curious, I get mine at 3rd Street Barbershop over the crossroad river in Lafayette. Okay. Yeah, not even West Lafayette. Cool. All right, back to more on topic. Let's see. We've got 4 minutes left, so let's go ahead and just tie it up. Let's go back to the academics and majors. If you, each one at a time, your biggest piece of advice for preparing for the academic rigor of college, whether it's Purdue or not, what is your biggest piece of advice? Maybe something you wish you would have known as a freshman, or something that they should do as a freshman, wherever they end up going, to like make sure they do well, start off on a good foot. Shivali, I'll start with you.
Sure. So college is hard. I knew that going in, but I think people had always told me that like, oh, calculus in high school is hard. And I was like, well, I define calculus. Like, how hard can college be? College is very hard. But because of that, I really suggest that you build in those office hours and those extra help sessions into your schedule. So my freshman year, I definitely didn't do that. But my second semester, I put my supplementary instruction session for physics in my calendar, and I treated it like a class. So that kind of forced me to go and get the help that I needed. I fell into a rut definitely my first semester and half of my second semester freshman year of just relying on my friends who, I mean, they're really smart, but we're all trying to learn the same material. They might not know it at the level that I need someone to know it to help me get from point A to point B. So making sure that, you know it's okay to go and get help, because there's just no way you can do college on your own by just listening to a lecture and coming back and sitting and figuring it out. If you can, that's really awesome, but I haven't met anybody who's been like that yet. So just make sure you go and get the help that you need and schedule it in and treat it like a real class. So you force yourself to go and, do above and beyond. Yeah,
just to echo that a little bit, I would say the mark of a successful college student is definitely somebody that goes and gets help when they need it. I mean, I'm sure for a lot of you guys, you maybe haven't hit a lot of classes where you've had a lot of trouble with it. And that might not be some of your classes in college, but it definitely will be some of your classes in college. And just because you don't understand the course material the first time you learn it, doesn't mean that you can't do it or that you're stupid or something like that. It just means that sometimes you need a different explanation of it, or you need a little bit of help in your homework to really clarify those concepts with you. So like, it's not a shot to your pride if you go in and get help in a help room. In fact, like, that makes you a better student, and that will make you a more successful student. And when it comes down to it, college is about learning the material that you're coming here to learn. And preparing yourself to go do whatever you're going to do post-graduation. So definitely echoing that, go get help if you need it. I would say another piece of advice, you just have to experiment with like how you study. Like what what strategies work for you, and that looks very different from person to person. You know, I mean, I can't just sit here and tell you how I study, because you know that's not going to translate to most people. And you know, it looks different between Shivali, Teddy, me, everyone. And Shivali had mentioned earlier, you know, it's not like high school. It's not like you're just going to be in school for 8 hours a day. You're going to have a lot of open time. But with that open time, you're also going to have a lot more homework to do outside of class. So you know, with all those times, you need to find ways in order to, you know, either block out time or, you know, buddy up with someone and do homework together, something like that, in order to, you know, make yourself do some of that work, put the time in to learn the material, do your homework, things like that. Because, you know, it can get easy to let things stack up on you if you let it go for a little bit.
Yeah, I would say get organized early. I'm a pretty unorganized person by nature. Like, I like throughout high school, you know, my planner was my brain, I guess. And then you come to college and you're trying to balance like classes and organizations and all this other stuff, and it's like hard to do that just in your brains. Like, invest in a planner. I keep a Google Calendar.
Google Calendar.
And, like,
Google Calendar.
Like, get a Google Calendar from day one.
Yeah.
It's so nice. Like, I put everything in that. I put all my classes, meetings. Beyond that, I'll schedule, like, if I have to, you know, do a homework assignment, I'll schedule that sometimes in my Google Calendar. Like, I'm going to do this for these 3 hours right here. You know, if I'm going to the gym, I'm doing this for these hours right here. And then it just really helps you stay organized. Keep everything in mind that you have to do. And I just started using that, like, kind of beginning of last semester, I guess. And it's been pretty big for me. And it's definitely helped me out a lot. Like, I'm not saying I missed assignments, but, you know, I'm not hearing on the day of that an assignment is due and having to, like, you know, scramble to get it done or anything like that. You know, I know far out because it's on my calendar.
I found out about my first Physics 172 exam the day of.
Already know.
There you go.
Sure
So yeah, when I discovered Google Calendars, it's life changing.
Yeah.
I had different calendars. Like, I had a calendar for classes, calendar for exams, calendar for personal meetings, whatever it was. So different color codes. So find what works for you. I know a lot of people that have written planners. I would forget to even write it up, let alone check it later on.
I never carried mine with me. That was
Yeah.
problem number one.
Google Calendar I was done for. So.
Yeah.
Google Calendar yells at you. It sends you a reminder. It sends you an alert on your phone and your computer, whatever it is. So find what works for you. It may not be Google Calendar, maybe something else. In my job, I use Wunderlist, which is really cool. It syncs across devices. It's great for to-do lists. So I use that along with Google Calendars. So definitely getting organized. My biggest piece of advice, it's not really a piece of advice so much as a fact, I guess, of failure happens. It's okay to fail. And you probably will have some sort of failure in college.
Totally.
Most of you were probably like 4.0 or very high achieving students. Failure, this is something that, and I'm hearing this from the first year engineering professors too, failure's gonna happen, and it's a part of life. Everybody has failed, you know. It's easy to think about these phenomenal people you hear about, like Elon Musk or some of these really cool professors we have. There's jobs they didn't get. There's positions they didn't get. There's promotions they didn't get in their life. Everyone fails at some point in some sort of a way, and what really matters is how you respond to it. Failure should be a learning experience. Say, all right, that didn't work. Let's try something different. That's in research. Most research projects probably don't have the outcome they were expecting. But that's the whole point of research. We try it because we don't know what's going to happen. It's the same thing with your classes. It's the same thing with trying to figure out your organizational habits, your study habits, what works. You're going to fail a test probably, and that's okay. So the biggest takeaway is to accept that failure is going to be something that happens at some point in your college experience, maybe more than once, but that it's okay. All of us struggle. Everyone struggles with something. And it's all about how you respond to it. So getting help in your classes to overcome it, which is what all three of them has already mentioned. It is probably one of the biggest barriers to overcome as a college student is learning that you can't do it on your own. And you really shouldn't. You absolutely should not do things on your own. So that's my advice is just, you know, even if things get tough, it's just all about pushing through it and realizing that, you know, you're not alone in failing or in struggling. And that everyone else around you has had struggles too and is there to help you out as well. Especially here at Purdue with our very kind of communal campus. We're a very friendly campus. We're open to helping each other out. Awesome. Well, that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you for sending all the questions. Thanks for tuning in all these times. There's only one broadcast left. It's 1 week from tonight. It is the last minute Q&A broadcast. Anything you want to know before that May 1st deadline, which at that point will be like 8 days away. So really cutting it close on the line here. So definitely tune in next week, same time, same place, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, April 23rd. Any questions you want to know about Purdue, engineering, student life, academics, whatever it may be, it'll be a free-for-all kind of topic. But thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate it. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can email our office, future-engineers@purdue.edu. Call us at our phone number, 765-494-3975. Testing my memory here. You can follow us on social media. PSEF as well has some of their own social ways to contact them. What's your? You have a general email address, right? Yeah? No?
PSEF at Purdue.
Is it PSEF@purdue.edu? Is that it? No. Kevin's saying no. Kevin, put it in the chat, please.
Thanks,
So
Kevin.
you can also reach out directly to PSEF if you want to talk to their students. We can also hook you up with any of the PSEF students as well through our office. We work very closely with them. So basically, I'll have to say these aren't the only opportunities to learn info. Come visit if you haven't already. Email us, call us, anything you can do to get your questions answered by our students or our staff here at Purdue. So thanks again. Have a great night and boiler up. See y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.